Hello everyone! Welcome back to Lolita Tips for New Lolitas. This is the series where we talk about some tips that new Lolitas might find useful to them as they begin their Lolita journey. It's been quite a while since our last video in this series, so I'm really excited to get back into it for you guys. So today's video is one that I've been thinking about making for a while, and we're going to be talking about main pieces. Specifically, what main piece is going to be for you. So in Lolita fashion, there are 4 types of main pieces: OPs, or one pieces, dresses with sleeves; JSKs, or jumper skirts, dresses that typically don't have sleeves. Sometimes you can get a little bit of a mini sleeve on them, but generally speaking, they don't have sleeves. Salopettes, which are baby JSKs in my opinion. They're very similar to JSKs design-wise, but they're a whole lot more casual and tend to have suspenders and are featured more in casual looks. And finally, skirts. As the name implies, it's just a skirt. It only covers the bottom half of your body, not the entire body, unless you're wearing something like a cafe skirt. On that note, there are many different types of skirts in Lolita fashion, but overall, we put skirts in the same category. So this subject is going to be split into 2 videos. This first video is going to talk about OPs and JSKs, typically because they tend to be the most popular amongst Lolitas, and the next video is going to cover salopettes and skirts, as they both tend to be a little bit more casual and less popular than OPs and JSKs. So when it comes to picking a main piece for your Lolita wardrobe, by no means am I saying that you can only wear one type of main piece. That's not what I'm saying. You can, of course, own whatever type of main piece that you would like for whatever dress you would like. Plenty of dresses, in many people's opinions, look better as a JSK, and in other opinions, some look better as an OP. It really just depends on the dress itself, the print, and what the overall design is bringing to the table. You don't have to stick to one particular type, but I've noticed that a lot of Lolitas will join the community and think that they should wear OPs, or maybe they're unfamiliar with JSKs, and they really prefer the other one, so that's why I wanted to start with these 2 in particular. Because like I said before, these are the most common types of main pieces. When it comes to brands like Angelic Pretty or Baby the Star Shines Bright, you typically have a lot of options to you, but when it comes to indie brands like on Taobao, you're typically only going to be seeing OPs and JSKs, and the options are only between those 2. So I wanted to give just a brief summary and rundown of the pros and cons of each and which ones may be more appealing to you. So to start off with OPs, I want to say that a big boon of OPs is that they are very, very simple to wear and style. I highly recommend OPs for brand new Lolitas who don't have too much in their wardrobe to make use of, because they're relatively straightforward in the fact that, like I said, typically, well, generally speaking, they have sleeves. Either long sleeves or short sleeves or even mini sleeves. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to OPs, you really don't need a blouse to be worn with them, and because of that, it's a whole lot easier when you don't have blouses in your wardrobe just yet, or you don't have a lot of blouses in your wardrobe, or you just don't really know how you would style it with a blouse. There are so many different types of color combinations that you can wear, and sometimes not every blouse looks good on every JSK. And when it comes to that, you just want to avoid buying a blouse that just doesn't look particularly good on a certain JSK. The best option in my opinion is to just buy an OP and not have to worry about that. So if you're a newer Lolita or you have a smaller wardrobe, then I think OPs are great. In terms of JSKs, I think JSKs are a lot more versatile, and almost any Lolita will tell you that JSKs are way more versatile than OPs. And because of that, they are almost always more recommended to newer Lolitas. That said, while I do agree that JSKs are a whole lot more versatile in that you can style them a lot of different ways, as just the simple addition of a blouse or cutso can dramatically change the look of a coordinate, I still think that they can be a little bit hindersome if you're a new Lolita and, like I said earlier, do not have too many blouses to work with, and you're a little bit nervous about, the prospect of wearing a JSK without a blouse, because it is very, very easy to misstyle a JSK when you're not wearing a blouse. Certain ones just need a blouse or else, your underclothes are going to be showing, and you really want to avoid that. So I do definitely think that JSKs are a lot more versatile, and that is one of the biggest boons for JSKs. I do have to say that if you are a newer Lolita and you do have a smaller wardrobe, then I would hold off on JSKs at the current time. Now back to OPs. I guess in that sense we should go to the downsides of OPs, in that a lot of people typically believe that they aren't too easy to style, and to a certain degree that is true. Like I said previously, you don't really wear blouses with OPs. Sometimes you can get away with it if it has mini sleeves or puff sleeves. You can kind of get away with sliding a blouse underneath it. But that's not always a good idea. If you haven't done that before, it can look really awkward or misappropriately styled, and that's not something that you really want to get into if it's not something that you're familiar with. So if you are someone who wants to try the blouse and OP look, I would recommend looking at, previous coordinates of people who have styled it that way to sort of get an idea of how it should look. But if you are someone who prefers OPs, you do have to remember that not all OPs are going to be made equally. Some OPs have long sleeves, some OPs have short sleeves, and if you're someone who prefers long sleeves, and the OP does not come with long sleeves, rather than getting the short-sleeved OP, you could opt for a JSK and just wear a blouse under it with long sleeves. Now, alternatively, you can always wear something like a cardigan or a nicely styled sweater that can go with it that can still cover your arms if you would prefer it. But generally speaking, I would recommend that if you're someone who just prefers the long-sleeved aspect and the OP that you have in mind has short sleeves, rather than trying to stuff a blouse under it, I'd either go for a cardigan or try to go for a JSK. Now, it typically depends on the dress that you're looking at, but sometimes I think that OPs can be a lot better designed than JSKs. Because they can make a lot more use of the bodice, I think that a lot of them have a lot of very, very gorgeous designs, and so in my personal opinion, OPs tend to win in that regard, which is why they tend to sell for more, because they just cost more money to make and produce. And I just think that a lot of them have so many nice details in comparison to JSKs that don't really get pointed out because of how unpopular they are generally with Lolitas. For example, I have the Milky Cross OP, and it has just the most beautiful bodice with all of these ruffles around the collar and these bows laid across it, and you just don't have that detail on the JSK because the JSK, doesn't have the sleeves, and so there's a lot less space to work with at the top of the dress. So a lot of dresses have this feature, and I think that if you're someone who really likes the intricate designs on the dresses, it typically tends to be the OPs that have that. I think another one that's off the top of my head I'm thinking of is Romantic Cat, and it has just this lovely, gorgeous bodice on the OP that the JSK just doesn't have. Now, on the other hand, there are plenty of JSKs that I think have a better design than OPs. For example, the original Milky Planet, which just got re-released, I love the halter neck on the JSK. I just think it looks so gorgeous. And of course, the OP doesn't have that. The OP is a simple short-sleeve dress, which tends to be a lot less popular than the JSK, which is extremely popular, and tends to sell for a lot on the secondhand market. And on another note, I would like to bring down another downside that JSKs have, which is, I guess, an upside, but it's a downside when you look at it from the secondhand perspective. Because JSKs are so much more popular than OPs, they typically tend to sell for a lot of money on the secondhand market. Because they're more popular and more people want to get their hands on them, the price for them can be pretty expensive. Whereas because OPs are a little bit less popular in the general sense of things, on the secondhand market, they tend to be selling for a lot cheaper. So if you want to get your hands on a particular OP, as long as it's not the more popular of the two, you'll probably get it for a much lower price than you would get for a JSK. Conversely though, when OPs are made brand new, it's going to be the more expensive option pretty much all the time. The OP, like I said previously, typically has more details on it, and because of that, the production value for it is a whole lot higher. So if you're going to be buying a dress brand new, OPs are almost always going to be more expensive, which is the downside to the OP when buying new, but the upside to the OP when buying secondhand is that they're usually a little bit cheaper. So do keep that in mind when you are deciding whether you want to go for the JSK or the OP. Now, I do want to address the claim that OPs are more difficult to style than JSKs. While I do think that that is true overall, because, when you lack the blouse, you kind of lack the ability to bring in other colors as easily, I still think that OPs can be easily styled to have as many colors as you want. All you really have to do is use all of your other accessories to bring out that secondary color that you want. For example, your socks, your headwear, your jewelry, your shoes, your cardigan if you are wearing one. All of these are different means to take an OP and to bring in a whole other color palette along with it. So yes, while it doesn't have the ability to do that with the blouse specifically, there are definitely ways to work around it. I mentioned previously that if you ask any Lolita, they're probably going to tell you that they prefer JSKs because of that flexibility. But this is not to say that OPs can't have that same level of versatility as well. It's just that in a general sense, most people find it easier to use a blouse to change the color, because all you really have to do is wear a pink dress, grab a blouse of any other color, and bada bing, bada boom, you've got an entirely different look going on. Which, yes, is harder to do with OPs, but not impossible if you can put your mind to it. I mean, really, if you just grab a bunch of pink accessories and throw them in your hair, along with all the jewelry and socks like I mentioned before, you can have just as much of a unique look as anything else. Like I said, I want to reiterate that there is no law or rule that you only have to buy one type of main piece. I have plenty of both JSKs and OPs, and it just depends on which version of the dress that I like more. Even for Girly Room from Angelic Pretty, I actually got both because I like both the JSK and the OP. So like I said, I don't want you to feel pressured into thinking you have to make this big decision of what you're going to be adding to your wardrobe in terms of every dress that you buy. It's just that most Lolitas typically tend to prefer one or the other, and if you're going to start buying a bunch of dresses at once, which I don't recommend, but if you're going to do it, I want it to be the type of dress that you find most comfortable. So if you're new to the fashion and your first order of business is to buy like 5 dresses, and you buy a bunch of OPs, it's not really going to be very good if by the time you get all 5 of those OPs, you start to realize that you like JSKs more, or vice versa. And like I said, because these are the 2 most popular, they are going to be the ones that you see most often on the secondhand market or just buying brand new. So I did want to make this video to sort of alleviate those concerns when it comes to buying your first main pieces and beginning to add them to your wardrobe. There's technically no pressure in getting it wrong 1 or 2 times and just getting a feel of it, because you never really know which one you prefer until you own it. I, like many others, thought that JSKs were the way to go before I remembered that I really like long sleeves, and I'm also a little bit lazy. And that is where I want to bring up the final boon that I think OPs have, is that they are perfect if you're lazy. If you are someone who just gets invited to a whole lot of meets sometimes, and there are occasions where you just don't feel like dressing up super duper, like, to the best of your abilities, you can just grab an OP, throw it on, and you're good to go. Just get your socks, shoes, purse, and everything else is good. You don't have to worry about picking out a blouse to go with it, the type of blouse, or anything like that. You can just grab that OP and you are good. There's nothing else you need to do except put it on. Now, I know that may seem like a pretty cheap benefit to having an OP, but it's valid. I mean, some of us are just lazy sometimes. Sometimes you just don't feel like putting on a full coordinate. You just feel like going to a meetup, but not necessarily thinking about, okay, what am I going to wear? Just sometimes when I'm going out myself, I'm like, I really just don't feel like coordinating today, so I just grab an OP and get ready to go. All I have to do is pick out my socks, and my shoes pretty much pick themselves since I don't have that many pairs. So if you are a little bit of a lazy bones like myself sometimes, or just every so often, having an OP in the wardrobe can always be a nice rescue for you. Conversely, if you love dressing up and making up as many diverse looks as possible, JSKs are there for you. JSKs are great for that. If you want to wear one dress several different types of ways, and you think a dress has so many different colors in it that you can make so many nice looks with it, then I would highly recommend going for a JSK, because it's just more flexible in how you're able to do that. I did mention, of course, that OPs can do this as well, but it's just factually easier to do with JSKs, and there's no reason to deny that. Just because I personally prefer OPs, there are definitely a whole lot of benefits to JSKs, and I do think I own more JSKs than OPs anyway, so it's not like I'm deluded to the fact that JSKs are generally more preferred. I think a lot of companies are privy to this as well, and so even though it will often take more money to produce the OPs, they tend to make the JSKs have a lot of appeal to them as well, simply because they know they're going to be sold a lot on the secondhand market, and because they're going to be purchased very quickly when a new dress releases. So they still have a whole lot of appeal to JSKs, and they will often have these prints in general that have so many different colors and ways to coordinate it, to sort of persuade buyers into not only buying the JSK, but all of the matching blouses, or cutsews, or whatever else accessories that they would like to add to the look. I know this video was probably a bit all over the place, going with the pros and cons and the boons and banes of OPs and JSKs, but I do hope that you gained something from it and that you learned something about OPs and JSKs that perhaps you didn't consider before as you start out your Lolita journey. Do let me know in the comment section below if this video helped you, and let me know as well if you can think of any other pros and cons to both JSKs and OPs. Also, let me know in the comment section below which one you prefer, OPs or JSKs. I have to say I prefer long-sleeved OPs, but I would prefer JSKs to a short-sleeved OP any day, so I can still wear my long-sleeve blouse. I hope this video was helpful to you. The next one is going to be covering cello pets and skirts, and we'll be talking about casual looks a little bit more. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.